Ladies and gentlemen, what is going on? Fly here. Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, recently War Thunder is shaping up to release the biggest fucking patch ever. I mean, this thing has to be like 20 gigabytes. But recently, as I said before, War Thunder News has released the bomber cockpits, the T-61, the So-Key anti-air, the Japanese pre-order packs of the Chiha 12 centimeter and the Japanese Tiger. Now they have posted pneumatic suspension with the T-74. So much stuff is going on. And on top of that, we have boats coming in as well. Now, usually how I do these this Devblog news stories, that I pick things that I'm most passionate about and interested in, and then I'll link the stuff that I don't really want to talk about in the description below. What we're going to talk about today is the Tiger, the pneumatic suspension, and the T-74. Now, some of you guys are wondering why I didn't make a video on the bomber cockpits. And the reason why I didn't make a video is just because they're bomber cockpits, and that's about it. And I don't really like to make videos just to make videos, if you catch my drift. If you guys want to check out what bomber cockpits could potentially look like when they're released in War Thunder, there is a video in the description below where I downloaded a user-made Heinkel 111 bomber cockpit for you guys to see and, you know, get a feel for how they'll be in the real game. So today we're going to be talking about the new Japanese Tiger, the pneumatic suspension, and then the T-74. Now, a long time ago, I think in 2014, I met with the CEO in Texas for that tank driving out session of the Shermans, Chafees, and Hellcats. And we were talking about Japanese tanks and how they could potentially work in War Thunder. We got into a pretty in-depth conversation about it. And remember, at this time, I don't believe the Leo was at it. The M60s weren't at it. ATGMs weren't at it. T62s, T10Ms, the Chieftains were not at it. The highest penetration in the game at the time was a M103 heat round at 310 millimeters. And the main topic to this conversation is, how do we make Japanese tanks competitive at mid-high to high tier? Because remember, I said before, the Leos, the T10Ms, the Chieftains weren't at it yet. And the CEO was saying that, I don't think Japanese tanks will be added, and if they are added, then they're gonna stop at tier 3 or BR, you know, 4.3, 5.7. And so I think for the past 2 years, War Thunder has been building up a list and a backbone of very good high tier vehicles that could compete into the 1960 era and even into the 70s to allow the Japanese ground forces to be competitive at high tier. I mean, the T-72 was put into service in 1975 and is still in service today. But it was designed in 1960s, 1962, I believe. So that is the one I'm going to be talking about first today. But hi, Baba. So the Type 74 or the T-74 is a main battle tank for the Japanese Ground Self-Defense Force, or JGSDF, because as we know, even today, the Japanese don't have an offensive military or a standard army, just because what happened, you know, a couple decades ago in World War II. Still one of the most advanced militaries in the world, but not for offensive, just for defensive. But if we just take a look at the Type 74 from these pictures, it definitely looks like this thing has a Leo chassis, and the turret, to me personally, looks like an M60's turret that's been squashed and smushed down to apply those amazing angles that we see on the turret, kind of resembling a T-54 design. Just some quick history about the Type 74 is that it received that technology, the hydro pneumatic suspension, that we will talk about more in a little bit, from a US-German project called the MBT-70 that we could potentially see in War Thunder. There were only prototypes and pilots, but there were about 13 to 12 produced. Here's a picture for you guys to take a look at this freaking beast. It has spaced armor, it can fire probably ATGMs, 152 millimeter barrel. Anyways, also the Type 74 was going to have an autoloader. However, through design phases and decisions, they opted out for a Royal Ordnance L7-105 cannon that they had on license. And the really cool thing about this Royal Ordnance L7-105 millimeter cannon is that the Type 74 could shoot armored piercing discarding sabot, high explosive plastic, which I believe is like a type of Hesh round. Maybe not. And then later it was modified to shoot armored piercing fin stabilized discarding sabot, and then a heat MP, which is a high explosive anti-tank multi-purpose round. So I wonder if War Thunder is going to incorporate these new types of ammunition into the game. We'll just have to wait and see. Now on to the armor. This is the most promising thing about the Type 74 in my eyes, is this thing has some pretty darn decent armor. The upper glacis has 80 millimeters of armor with an effective slope or effective armor thickness up to 189 millimeters for the upper and 139 for the lower glacis. Side armor is 35, rear armor is 25, and here's where it gets pretty darn cool. The turret has an estimated armor value of 195 millimeters. So sure, other tanks can pen that, no problem, but I'm talking about the ZSU-57s. That's gonna have a hard time getting through the upper plate and the turret, and might have some trouble at range getting through that lower glacis. So it seems that, in my eyes, the Type 74 is gonna be a much better tank to deal with the Russians than the Leos, just from the ZSU not being able to kill you early game from the front. Now let's talk about the hydro pneumatic suspension that's going to be added to War Thunder, and only the new Japanese tanks will be able to take a hold of this new feature. So hydraulic pneumatic suspension is a combination of two technologies, hydraulic and pneumatic pressures. And that is where I'm going to stop explaining how it works, because I'm not an engineer, and I think I owe it to you guys to not fill your ears with misinformation. But a link to how it works will be in the description below for you guys. This technology in War Thunder is going to be game changing. This suspension allows the vehicle equipped with it to shift its left and right tracks up and down, kind of on the longitudinal axis. So an example of this in the game is that, let's say that you're on a slope. It has a pretty good inclination. There's an enemy tank down to your right. You don't have that shot. And what you would do is you would lower your right side of your tracks to bring your gun barrel down to kind of meet the inclination and get enough depression to take it out. This thing is going to be, as I said before, game changing. And also it's able to, on the vertical axis, go all the way up that it can. So you can increase your silhouette. Let's say you're behind cover. You can go up with the gun and the tank, shoot, and then seriously decrease your elevation and go back down to your normal or even lower so they can't hit you at all. And also, back to the example of the Type 74 on the slope, this hydro pneumatic system can allow the tank to go up and down from the front and back. So the front will go down, the back will go up, the back will go down, the front will come up. So this will allow your tank to have better depression and better elevation. And you do the math. The Leos, I believe, have -10 or -9 gun depression. And with the T-74, the Type 74, this hydro pneumatic suspension might aid 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 degrees. We could see the Type 74 having a gun depression when you put it into the correct configuration of maybe -12 through -15 degrees. And another useful thing that the hydro pneumatic suspension brings to the Type 74 is that you can fine tune the way you engage enemy targets. So let's take the slope or the hill example again. So you're shooting enemy tanks from the hill and you're able to fine tune your upper and lower glacis on that hill to where you can hide your lower glacis and make your upper glacis so angled that it would make those incoming shells work harder to penetrate your tank. And one final plus, we now have combat ready lowriders in War Thunder. Last but not least is the Japanese Tiger, or more specifically the Tiger E. That Tiger is at 6.0, rank 3 on the German tree. However, the Japanese tank, or the Tiger tank, has been confirmed via forums that this one is going to be a 5.7. Now, some differences between the 5.7 German Tiger and the 6.0 is that the 6.0 has some better cupola or cupola armor, better turret armor, about 140 millimeters in some spots instead of 120, and it shoots APCR. So we're just gonna have to wait and see how this 5.7 Japanese Tiger, that really should be 6.0, will affect War Thunder ground forces. In my opinion, I don't think it's really gonna affect it much because the front plate's 100 millimeters, and when do Tigers use APCR on lower BR opponents? Not much. They usually stick to that AP high explosive filler. But it would be nice to see War Thunder keep things nice and squared away. And yeah, I'm thinking of it too. I'm thinking of when the Japanese and Germans are on the same team. It's going to be like a National Geographic BBC Planet Earth 2 David Attenborough episode with all the damn cats in the game. So many tigers are going to be out in force once Japanese tanks are released. But guys, I hope you have enjoyed this episode. Until next time, have a great day. Peace out.